Shoppers can now return to most of their favorite stores, but when you walk in, you might notice the racks are pretty bare. Kristen Drummond is live in the Southwest Valley with the reason tonight. Kristen?
Denise, availability seems slim right now at stores like Ross. I went inside this one near the 215 and South Rainbow today. There were hardly clothes on the racks like we're normally expecting at a store like Ross. And the Retail Association of Nevada tells me it's because of a disruption in the supply chain. It's an issue impacting retailers across the state. The association says that various factors are contributing to the lack of inventory, and that includes the pandemic and Chinese manufacturing slowing down because of the decline in consumer demand. Those issues go beyond clothing to tech and businesses selling goods. The association anticipates more delays in products as the year continues.
It's early still, so but we can expect.
Yeah, I want to say Kalalalia, how about Hashem Oshai, Hashem Kwadash. The honors to the elders and apostles of Raymond Stone, and salutations to all the brothers pushing this work in all sincerity and in truth. I'm the brother Yahya from the James Kingston Jamaica camp, here once again with another lesson. As you can see, the title of the video on your screen is basically entitled Clothing and Food Shortages as Pandemic Disrupt Supply Chains Failed. So basically this is not rocket science, right? Transaction and cash flow is one of the driving forces of an economy. You have to have transactions happening for an economy to strive, right? Now when the pandemic arises and this starts to halt businesses, SMEs keep closing, and you have the limited transactions of cash, this is basically a detriment to any economy that this is happening in right now. So naturally, if you have the stop of transactions happening, naturally you're going to have the supply chain shortages. You understand? And we are all the current economy and society is structured at this moment. It is even more impactful because society is structured in a way where majority of the populace are dwelling in cities, and due to the populace dwelling in cities, you have what you would call urbanization, right? Due to that happening, all the foods has to be coming from far distances to get to where what is happening in the city, and the plus thing, you have the limitation of agricultural development, right? So in small countries such as Jamaica, where you have limited agricultural development, limited flow of goods within the economy, right, you're going to have a decline of economic growth, right? You're going to have food shortages, right? Because we are living in the time when other countries are starting to do what? Other countries are starting to hoard their food because what is happening in their economy as well, in their society, and to how their society is structured, they have the limitations of supplies. So they are not going to send supplies to countries like Jamaica, right? China is not going to send supplies. America is not going to send supplies. So in due time, we're going into a state where the food shortages and the clothes shortages and the supplies will basically be more impactful, where it's going to reach the stage where it is evident that we are living in prophetic times, right? So let me get some precept. The first precept I'm going to get is the book of 2nd Ezra chapter 15, right? So the book of 2nd Ezra chapter 15 says what? Start at verse 1. It said, Behold, speak down the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. Fear not the imaginations against thee, let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. And these topics, right, are these things that I've just mentioned, right, are the things that you see being placed on the forefront of the news. This is the narratives of the time. You understand? the sword, the famine, death, and destruction. Right? And in the video, we just watch part of it. I'm going to play the other part. It's showing you we're showing you where we are going into. It's basically directing you to where we are going into, because these things are affecting other areas as well. It's affecting other sectors. It's affecting the renting sector, right? It's not only affecting businesses. It's affecting your cash flow, right? So all of these things are going to result in what? War among people, uproars of the people, right? It's going to result in the famine, death, and destruction. Let's jump to the book of 2 Ezra 16 verse 43. What does it says? Right? 2 Ezra 16 verse 43 says, "He that soweth as he should not reap, so also he that planteth the vineyard as he that shall not gather the grapes." So the mind state of people right now is supposed to be that you're in a state where all the production that you're doing to try and stabilize yourself within this dying economy, your mindset would have to be that you're going to lose it, right? Because you're going to plant your crops and another man will come reap, right? You're going to plant up your vineyard and another man will come basically want to kill you for what you have tried to provision for your family, right? 2 Ezra 15 and verse, let me see. Bear with me. Trouble houses because their pride as cities. Alright. Verse 14. Start at verse 14. It said, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up against another, and swords in their hands." What does that sounds like? That sounds like sedition among the people. The scripture said that. "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." So when you look on the news and you see tens of thousands of people going homeless, tens of thousands of people going not having a job, right? What you think are going to happen to those people in time when they realize that resources are limited? They're going to turn against the government. They're going to turn against each other, right? The scripture says what? It says, "They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able to. For because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be troubled, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread, and for great tribulation." Right? So a man will go into a next man's house, steal out all them goods, right? And even take that man's life. This is the state of the times we're living in right now. The scripture tells you, measure the time diligently in itself. And what you use to measure the time is the scriptures, right? So when you see these things happen, just know that the time of the end is near. Let's watch the rest of the video.
I think some sort of supply chain disruption as it comes into the third and fourth quarter holiday for retail.
Shortages also continue at grocery stores. Meat remains an issue because of certain processing plants closing temporarily, and there's also limited baking items and ingredients like yeast due to a surge in baking interest, according to the National Grocers Association. But paper goods and cleaning product demands have returned to normal. Now, not seeing a huge...
So you realize initially at the start of this pandemic, people was buying things like soap, they was buying tissue, toiletries, and so forth. But now, the true senses of individuals are starting to come into play, where they realize that the true necessity is food, right?
Decline are actually comfort clothing like pajamas, slippers, sweatpants, and retail experts say because there is still a demand for that type of clothing, it does seem that people are still continuing to hunker down during the pandemic.
So what's going to happen? People have to go buy clothes. because they are going to be homeless. So they are going to be out in the street. Times are going to get cool, and winter is coming. So they need to have fitting clothes to bear through the winter, because they are not going to have the heaters anymore because they don't have no roof over them head.
Reporting live in the Southwest Valley, Kristen Drummond, 8 News Now.
All right, so we asked some of our shoppers out there, have you been able to find everything you need in the stores? And it's been fairly split. 51% saying, yep, finding what I need, and 49% saying no.
So a part of the video shows you empty shelves, man. And the scripture also speaks about that in the book of 2 Ezra chapter 6, verse 22. It says what? Let's read it. It says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, and the full storehouses shall be suddenly found empty. And these are the times we are going in, man, when where resources shall be limited, right? Resources are going to be very limited, right? So with that, I hope that this was edifying unto the elected nation of Israel. I want to say Kalalal, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Makar Kodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Stone, and citations to all brothers pushing this work in all sincerity and in truth. Shalom.